Are you waiting to build the confidence before you get started? We see this all the time, whether it's losing weight or even joining a church. We always feel that we have to reach a level of perfection before we can get started. But the truth is, we're never going to get the confidence that we're never going to reach the same level of confidence to get started as if we just get started first and then build the confidence from there. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner, and I use social media to share my journey and to build a community of nurse practitioners who want to thrive, excel, and not do it alone. So, as you can see in the title, today we're going to be talking about fear and confidence. This is part 2 of my nurse practitioner diary series. So, like I said, if you're new here, I'm a new nurse practitioner. I graduated in 2019, but I didn't finish my DNP until 2022. Then I took a sabbatical, and that time ended not too long ago. And so now I'm out here trying to do all the things. And I use this channel to share my journey because I've been in healthcare for almost 15 years. And I have a lot to share. And I love educating, I love teaching. And so I really just want to be your virtual preceptor, something I didn't get to do a whole lot of as a night nurse. But I absolutely love it. I've been either tutoring or mentoring in some capacity for a really, really long time. And I've received tutoring and mentoring in some capacity. Not as much mentoring as I would have liked, but that's about to change, friends. Actually, as this filming, we're just almost 24 hours away from my first coaching experience, and I'm so excited. Partly one of the reasons I even knew that taking a sabbatical was an option is the lady who I'll be working with all week. She's very prominent and popular here on YouTube. I've been following her for maybe 2 or 3 years now. I don't remember. But I can't wait to meet her tomorrow. It's a coaching experience to help you build your YouTube channel. It's for people who've already started a YouTube channel and to build it, not to like actually get started. And so that's partly where this whole title came from, this idea that you need to build your confidence before you get started. But the truth is, you're not going to have the confidence that you think until you actually get started. And what I found in my own experience is that now that I've actually built things, social media platforms, my blog, a business, that now when I learn about new ideas and ways to build and grow and scale and increase engagement, all those things, that it's so much easier to implement than to just keep adding notes to a notebook. I was that person who had a notebook full of dreams, and that's where they still live, in that notebook. But now that I'm building things and creating things, it's actually just like investing. It was so confusing until I actually started doing it. And then it's like you learn a little bit at a time, and as you learn, you're growing in the learning process, and it makes so much more sense. Even like I said, I had orientation. I received a lot of information, right? And people told me this stuff. And now that I'm in practicing, now it makes sense. Now I have a place to apply it. And it's like, oh, I spent a lot of time doing other things. And then I come to realize just going back to the way I was taught, because now I know why they were saying it. And now I have a place to store that information. So I do apologize. I'm in the middle of getting groceries. And so I just like to communicate to my shopper and let them know that I appreciate them. So they'll be coming here shortly. Sometimes they knock, sometimes they don't. But if they knock, the puppy's going to make some noise. And so we're going to talk about confidence and fear today. That's some things some of the lessons I've been learning. I've talked before about the mental health challenge surprises that I've experienced since I started this role a couple months ago. And really now that I've had a chance to explore those feelings, I think it's just anxiety. Well, I don't think that's my leading diagnosis. And I think it was just because I remember someone that asked me, was I feeling overwhelmed? And I was like, no. And I think it's because I haven't felt overwhelmed in a long time. And so I didn't recognize it. Same with the anxiety. But as I've mentioned, And especially more now that I recognize the anxiety, like how present it really is in nursing. Um, so yeah, but before we get started, because I'll close this out and I'll totally forget. As you can see in the thumbnail, look at this cute little postcard that I created for diversity in dermatology. We're less than 2 months away from our conference this year in San Antonio, Texas. Let me just check out this lighting too. I think it's okay. Yeah, so we put together these postcards as one of our marketing strategies. We have a whole bunch of them. This is one of them. But it's just so cool to see something that I made in person. And there's a back too. Yeah. So we'll be in San Antonio, March 21st to the 24th. We're offering 22.5 continuing education credits or CMEs. We have a ton of exciting lectures, a lot of topics covering diversity, how to recognize the different and unusual presentations of dermatological conditions and skin of color. So lots of talk on that. Exciting things like our career lounge with headshots and talking about contract negotiations, how to speak for pharma and side hustles. We're going to have someone that's going to be there to talk to you about pursuing your doctoral education, particularly as an NP. And we have our Mexican Fiesta reception. We have a Texas Rodeo reception. These are both family-friendly activities. And our Achieve program reception, where we recognize the previous year's cohort, which I'll be a part of that, to recognize our achievement and accomplishment. And some of the people who may be in the 2024 cohort might be there as well. And so it's just a great opportunity to learn more about what we can offer you if you're new to derm, particularly if you're NP or PA in your first 3 years of derm, where we help you to really build that medical foundation, medical dermatology foundation, which a lot of people think that is the place to start your education in derm. So yeah, but anyway, it's just super cute to see this. You know, like one thing in terms of building a community is just letting people know how many options there are in healthcare. And so speaking of healthcare, I think I've mentioned on here before, I talk to a lot of aspiring nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, PAs, and they all, when I say, why do you want to be, and I don't think they hear me, but I'll say, what are you doing? What's your goal? And they'll say they'll tell me the title of the job that they're aspiring to be, the clinical role. And then I'll say, okay, so why do you want to be in healthcare? And it wasn't until this couple days ago, and I was listening to this entrepreneur talk. So he gave an example about railroads. And oh no, it was a book. I was listening to a book. Anyway, so it was the railroad industry, and they were so caught up in building the railroad that they didn't realize that they were part of the transportation industry. However, like the airplanes and other forms of transportation did recognize it. And over the course of time, they ended up being the more dominant source when it comes to transportation, particularly long distance transportation. And so that example made what I've been saying make more sense. And so when people say they want to be a nurse practitioner, doctor, PA, and I say, well, why do you want to be in the healthcare industry? It's because, and I'm talking about myself too, but since I do these videos and I talk to like my mentee and stuff, then it puts you in a place of reflection. And so, certain things are, hindsight is 2020, right? And so when I say, oh, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a nurse practitioner, I want to be a doctor, I think I'm entering the nurse business, or I think I'm entering the physician business. And you can see that play out in our career. But if you realize you're actually entering an industry, then I'm hoping through this platform, I encourage people who have those dreams and desires to look more into the industry itself. Not only so you have a better understanding of what you're actually committing to, like this is a real true commitment. It's really like a calling in a lot of ways, but also so that you know all the many opportunities. Because if you just see nursing as being something at the bedside, It's a very limited perspective, one, on what you're able to do, which is why you hear so many nurses say, I'm just the nurse, because this is all I do. This is my role right here. This is it. I'm confined to this position. And even if all you do is then get your MP degree and go to some clinical setting and only know this one thing that you're doing, this direct patient care, whether there's a bed or not, you're if your perspective of what you do is only tied to this linear relationship, even still, your perspective is very limited, not only on what you can do, what your potential is, what your contributions are, but what you're a part of. And so, one thing I really loved, and I felt this way for other things too, is when I was able to orient both in day and night shift, it gave me a much broader understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing on each particular shift and how I can be a better support to the other shift and why I see what I'm seeing. Let's say if it's, I'm coming in at 7 p.m. and maybe there's certain things that aren't done. Well, now I know why they're not done, because instead of doing these 5 things, they're doing these 10 things, right? And so it just gives you a better understanding. Maybe it builds better relationships and allows us to be more patient and gracious of our colleagues as well. But I really, really want to encourage you to think about the healthcare industry is what you're trying to be a part of. And I hope that that broadens your mind and maybe even gets you a little bit more excited about what you're about to do. And so I know recently a young lady said I think I can't remember what her education was, but I think the next step was going to be LPN. And she's like, "Yeah, I just want to try it out to see if it's going to be hard." And I said, "Well, it is going to be hard. I'm here to tell you it's going to be hard, right? This is a stressful, high-paced environment. It's going to be hard. But we can do hard things, particularly when we're not doing them alone and we have a community around us. But more importantly, why do you want to do it, right?" And so let's say you want to help people, right? That's the most common answer. And I've said before, you can help people delivering their groceries, you can help them building their home, you can help them navigate the system, you can help them by increasing access to providers, by opening up clinics and participating in policy, like a million ways to help people. But let's say you get into something, let's say you get into nursing, let's say you do this for 10 years, and then all of a sudden you decide you don't want to do it. Or maybe you don't even get this far. Maybe you can't even pass the NCLEX or you can't even get accepted into a program, but you still have a heart to help people. That doesn't have to change, because you can, first of all, if you're making this decision and you're 18 years old or 25, you're going to change. Your thoughts are going to change, your desires, your responsibilities, your availability, that's going to change. So let's say you do something and you can't get there. You can still help someone. Maybe you don't get into nursing school, right? But you can still open a business, hire some nurses, hire some nurse practitioners, provide a clinic, provide resources. Maybe you help other providers, right? That's kind of a lane I'm in. That's a target market I understand really well. So let's say it's the travel nurse industry, right? So now you build your own travel nurse housing placement, right? Or health insurance or investment club or fashion, right? Like, think about all the things we need as a clinician to provide care. It's everything from what I wear, how I prepare for interviews, how I network, the type of insurance I get, the type of legal advice I look for. I'm more likely to go to either a let's say I need legal counsel. I'm more likely to go to someone who's been referred by someone in my field, right? Or I'm also more likely to go to someone who's been in my field. Maybe they're a nurse turned lawyer or what vice versa. I think that's usually I haven't heard too many lawyers turn nurse, but I've heard lots of nurses turn lawyer, right? I'm more inclined because we speak the same language. There's going to be a lot of things that I don't have to explain that they're just going to understand. And so there's a million ways to be part of the industry. But if I only limited my thought process to this bedside relationship or this direct patient care relationship, then I'll never recognize that. And not only that, I'll also think it's too grand of an idea. So that's one part. And so what I recently learned is that because it's overwhelming, right? Whether you're in clinicals, like NP clinicals, or new job orienting, or actual just clinical practice. It can be, especially if you're new student, new provider, new semester, new specialty. It can be overwhelming. And so what I've learned is it's much more realistic and smart goals to set one goal at a time. And we say this all the time, like especially when it comes to like weight loss, instead of trying to do all the things at once, why don't you just focus on increasing your water intake? Let's do that for 2 weeks, right? Then after and during those 2 weeks, you might start to think about, oh, what's my next thing going to be? So now you're just like thinking about it. Then the 2 weeks are up. You're like, okay, so I've been pretty good about this water. Let me now start just reading labels. No change, nothing else. I'm just reading the labels. Now I've increased my awareness and my knowledge. Man, so now I'm kind of slowly making these changes because now my knowledge base has increased. Oh, another 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks. Okay, I've read the labels. Now I'm going to start to make some changes. Maybe I'm just going to focus on my carbs, or maybe I'm just going to focus on my sodium intake. Still doing good with the water, right? And now I'm building my confidence because now I've been able to maintain this new behavior pattern, new habit. And now I'm adding on one more. And it's just one at a time, right? And so it's the same thing with maybe having debt. Maybe you have 5 different bills. And if my mentee's watching this, I just gave her the same example when I sent her a video. Let's say you have 5 bills. One might be $1,000, one might be 800, one might be 500, 150. So you can look at all that and say, "Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money." And then or you could say, "You know what? Let me do the $50 one first. Boom, got it done. Okay, yeah, now I have the confidence that I've done it, that I can do it, and now I have an extra $50. So now I'm gonna take that $50 and apply it to the 80, right? This is your snowball method. So now once the 80's paid off, now I've done 2 things. Now I have not only have I built my confidence that I can do this, I've literally built the amount of money I can contribute or the amount of energy or experience I can contribute into my next thing. So now we're going to take the 50 and the 80 and apply it to the 100. I mean, I'm knocking these goals out and now I have more and more to give. Before you know it, you have all that you were giving to those smaller bills to pay off the 1,000 and now you're done. It's the same thing I recognize in clinical practice. I was working on one goal and at first I did get frustrated because it's like I'm trying to do all these things, do all the things, get them all improve in all these areas. But I realized by just focusing on one thing at a time, not only was it more realistic, I felt less overwhelmed. And then I was able to really assess what I was doing because, and actually, that's what we do in the DMP program. That's one thing you learn, particularly if you do the quality improvement like a quality improvement project, is it teaches you how to only, and that's what the evidence shows too, is to only introduce one new intervention, 1 to 2 at a time, so you can actually measure which one's actually making a difference. And we know this in clinical practice, right? If our patient adds on 5 new topicals to their regimen, we don't know which one's the most irritating or and also which one's the most effective if we just added all of them. And so what I noticed is that when I just focused on one thing, right? Maybe with just my documentation in terms of like how quickly I can get it done. First, I saw a small improvement there, right? And for 1 week, then the next week, even more improvement. So I was like, oh man, now I've got that down. Let me focus on like something different. And even though I was frustrated at first that I'm only kind of seeing improvement in this one area or only working on this one thing intentionally, and I really wasn't. I just happened to notice there was a chance. Like, I made a small change in the way I prep for the day and go about the day, and I noticed this was happening. Um, so then I said, well, I was frustrated, like, oh, I should be working on multiple things, right? But I was like, you know what? Even though I'm not consciously working on these other things, like, I don't want to say consciously, but even though I might not be purposely measuring all these other things, let's say, if my goal is to just improve my documentation by Friday in one area, maybe it's like finish an hour faster, something like that. I'm still working on other things. Like if you're showing up for class, if you're showing up for clinical, if you're showing up to your practice, you're still working on other things constantly, but maybe you're just not measuring it. And that could just all be completely psychological, just so you don't feel like you're being evaluated all the time, even though you are, right? But it's just to give you one thing to focus on, but also be reassured that as long as you're showing up, right? Even like in yoga, as long as you show up on the mat, you're gonna see progress, right? So that was one big lesson I learned. And then um so that was the goal setting. Oh yeah, and just the confidence, right? Just to just to do it, right? So I knew I wanted to start doing some coaching. I've mentioned before that, especially in grad school, as I start learning more about like entrepreneurship and business and investing, it's like, oh, there's so much to learn. And I would love to just devote all my time and attention to this one thing at a time. But then it's like, man, and that could take a long time. And I have all these other things I'm trying to do. And so I realized, just like we tell our patients, we have people out here who are experts for a reason, experts, people with experience. And at first, when you think about doing something, you think the best way to approach it is to do it yourself because it's cheaper. Mostly we focus on the cheaper part. And maybe we're not fully committed to that might be a different topic. Um, but what I got from the book, I think I got it from the 4 Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. He tells you to calculate how much your time is worth. So let's say you decide your time is $100 an hour, let's say. And so you say, oh, I want to build a website and I'm going to do it myself and save money. Well, let's say it takes you 8 hours to build the website in real time. It probably takes you 2 weeks. Okay. But let's go with 8 hours. So it takes you 8 hours to build the website. So that's $800 that you just spend. But you never check to see actually how much it would have cost to have a website built. Maybe it would have only cost you $200 or $300 by someone who's done it more than you. Maybe they already have templates ready to go. And not only do they have these templates to help you get started, they can provide you with helpful information to save you time and money. And so in the long run, did you really save money or did you really waste money? And so once you start to have that sort of thinking, that like mind shift, it can really change the game for you. And so yeah, so then you say, okay, so maybe I will spend some money and get someone to help me. But then you start looking at the prices and you say, oh man, this is so expensive. But another mind shift, right? Is it's not that you're paying them, it's that you're investing in yourself. And you really have to internalize what that means to invest in yourself. Because if you're going to spend this time and you're going to spend this money, they're going to give you, if you've done your research on the person, you know that they're going to give you, they have the experience, the expertise, the networking, the resources to help fast track your success. Because what I can spit out in this, like, 30-minute video, I could condense the whole last year in 30 minutes, right? You don't have to spend 12 months learning what I'm doing. You can get the gist of the key points of those 12 months in 30 minutes. And just think if you applied that to whatever you're trying to do, get into a program, find preceptors, get your job, all those things, right? And so that was kind of like the main thing I wanted to talk about. And I also talk about kind of my journey here in social media. And so I'm super excited for this coaching experience. And really, someone said it's really just like having a mentor, which I'm really excited about because I need someone at the next level so that I can get to the next level too. And yeah, I'm really excited. I'm a little nervous because the sessions are at 3 o'clock every day. And some of my days are a little long, and so it's going to be a little bit stressful. But when I saw that the opportunity was available, I was just like, let me just do this, right? And so I'm really excited to see. So the next video I do next weekend will be all about my experience this week. Keep me in prayer. Um, that I can keep my head on my shoulders. I did some food prepping, I did the laundry just to try to, you know, limit how many things I have to do during the week. I think that's all I have for now. So we talked about goal setting and confidence. But yeah, I think I'm going to yeah, and hopefully next week I think I don't know exactly how the challenge goes, but I know it's to help us be more engaging, to identify our target. And so, my target is nurse practitioners and nurses who are, their track is to get in to be a nurse practitioner, particularly in this space of education. And so, yeah, I came with the virtual preceptor idea. It kind of goes along with a long-term plan I have. And so, really excited to kind of play that out. Um, because even in clinical setting and in orientation, in both cases, they're not always the most optimal place for learning, like the actual exchange of like dialogue and going over cases back and forth because you're in real time with real patients with real time constraints, and then when the day's over, God bless them. I've had some preceptors who have definitely just sat there and gone through all the questions with me, but everyone wants to go wants to go home. And so in that experience, both when I was at the bedside too, um, it's like once the shift is over, once your day is over, everybody wants to go home. And even if you're a nurse practitioner and you get that first job or you just get a new job, even in dermatology, you get a job without experience, right? You're one of the rare few who can do that. People still find that they need a place for the learning, the talking, the building up their confidence, the being able to slow down the pace. And that's where, virtual preceptor comes in, or you just having your mentor too, right? And why people are still out here looking for opportunities for education and training, even though they have a job, because it's so fast paced and it's just real time. And it's not always the most conducive for learning. Um, the learning where you're an active participant, like able to talk through all your thoughts without having a patient, without taking away from the patient. Even in a teaching facility, that can still sometimes be the case. So yeah, that's nice. So that's what I have for this week in terms of learning, and I try to just change it up so it's not just all about me, but that I can take what I've learned and give advice that you can actually use. And so I'm eager and excited to see how my presentation changes over the course of the next 5 days. Well, like, do I think I'll come on here and be just like, pew, you know, super YouTuber? No, but I think I will have the tools. And honestly, I think I'm going to have some more confidence because you're going to be working with other people trying to do similar things. So similar mindset, and also the chance to get to meet the person who I f- love. She completely changed my life in terms of how I think about, um, freedom, right? I already had that kind of mindset, and she just kind of gave a lot of permission to continue to stay there. And it's the community, it's the network, it's the other people. I know we're going to stay in touch. I know we're going to help each other grow. And so that's exciting. Like I'm out here to, I think I've talked about on every week, that I just want to be, I'm here for the partnership, right? I don't want to do this alone. Like academia is pretty lonely. And I did that for like my whole adult life. And I talk about how nursing, working in silos, also very lonely. Um, and then entrepreneurship can also be very lonely. I was talking to a friend of mine this week about that. And yeah, and so I don't think we need to do this anymore. We don't need to do this alone. I tell my mom all the time, don't suffer in silence. If you're having pain, if you're having issue, you need help, just speak up. And so that applies here too. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I'll come back on next week. It'll be live. And I'll talk about my experience in the YouTube Success Challenge, which, so honestly, she's actually going to come watch all these videos. And so I have that in my mind too. And so we'll see, she's going to help me kind of hash through like what I'm even doing here. What am I making these videos for? Who's my target audience? How do I keep you engaged? And how do I make this like worth your time? And so for me, I think those are my goals for tomorrow or for this week in general. So yeah, I just can't wait to share that with you, and also just share the benefits of coaching and mentorship and working in a community. I think hopefully we'll all benefit from that. So be well, have a great week. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be in touch.